Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Marvel Crisis Protocol Game Modes Discussion Panel. I don't know if that's the actual title, but it's the title on my sheet.
Which is, I think that makes it the actual title.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Welcome to Game Modes Galore. A panel with so much moxie, it might have a shot.
I'm excited about it. You can tell it's nearing the end of the third day.
So close to the end of the third day. We're a little punchy. A lot punchy. So I have Ben Ransom with me. I have Will Pagani with me.
Hello.
We're going to be talking about just kind of an overview of dev and design for game modes, different play experiences, what we're trying to get out of each experience, how we look at those experiences when it comes to the development and the design, the balance. Do we care as much about balance? What are we balancing for? Where do those different levers and everything go in? And how that all comes back together to create a healthy game ecosystem that allows all different play types and player experiences that kind of hit notes, because everybody wants different things. We're going to talk about that as well. Yeah. So let's talk about standard play. Go ahead, Pagani. Take us away. Standard play.
Standard play. Well, it's the expected normal play for the game. It's the word standard. It's what is in the core rulebook, right? There's no modifications to that outside of the core rulebook. It's just what you're going to do. This is it. You buy the box, you open it, that's what you play. This is the core of the game. This is what we expect 90+% of players are playing on a daily basis when they play the game.
It's the experience we build everything else on top of.
Correct, yes. And it's what we primarily focus on when balancing and creating characters, creating tactic cards, creating affiliations, creating all of these different things. And that is, I'll say it, that's what matters the most. I don't know why there's quotation marks, because it's true.
The most.
The most. Also just the most.
I think you can say the most, right? Because there's definitely players out there that never or do not prioritize the base game experience. But they are rare. Like you said, 90% of players or games played are going to be under that standard mode. And it's really from the standard mode, if you have a healthy base, right, that allows all these other branches to shoot off of and grow from.
Yeah, and I think we've done a great job of building a core that we can then go in a million different directions from, right? You're going to see everything in this panel, from competitive to some of the wackiest stuff we've ever done to football, right? Like there's just all sorts of everything, and I love it.
And I do want to point out that it was very intentional from the start. Like as we designed the initial base game, we had these ideas, Ultimate Encounters being the first, which we're going to go to next, in mind from the start. So as we were creating the base game experience, we were always kind of looking to not just how is that experience going, but also does this work to allow expansion and growth outside of it? And what does that mean? Are we going to run into significant issues? How does this stuff kind of affect each other? And I think that has led us the ability in a lot of ways to go even further than we imagined at the start when it comes to all the different ways that we're going to discuss how players out there can play games, experience Marvel Crisis Protocol, explore their collections and all of that stuff. Ben, you got anything else to say about standard play?
I don't think I do. It's
No, that's it. All right.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I think we covered it.
It's pretty chill.
All right. Why don't you walk us through Ultimate Encounters then? Let's move on. So the very first experience that was different from the core set was the Ultimate Encounters mode. Came out with Thanos and Ultron.
All Will Be Metal was the first one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then Thanos was the first product one. All Will Be Metal was a print and play.
Well, but timeline-wise, we did Thanos first, then we did Ultron.
That's true.
Because, timelines and production work weird. Just a quick shout-out before you dive into this. Sorry. I'm hitting all my notes. I'm hitting all my beats. And we've got slides on this, too. Earth's Mightiest core set has an Ultron in it. That Ultron works perfectly great for the free online Ultimate Encounter, All Will Be Metal, which was the first Ultimate Encounter that players got their hands on. The second one we designed and developed. So just like with the original core set, it's a great way to immediately jump off, play the base game, but also start exploring the different game modes. Ultimate Encounters, go.
Yep. Ultimate Encounters allow us to use much stronger characters in the narrative that we're trying to forge. That we can have an entire team trying to fight a supervillain, or in the case of just Parker Luck, all the spider foes trying to fight Spider-Man.
I love that one.
Yeah. And we can get a little kooky with the scenarios. We can make them more narrative, more specific, because you're going to that format. You're going to play an Ultimate Encounter and trying to enjoy it in a single sitting and not trying to come back to it again and again, day after day.
Mm-hmm. And Shake also talked about balance, right?
Right.
These do not have to be balanced.
No,
Like,
not at all.
at all.
Yeah, if we want it, usually we have a difficulty slider on these.
Sure, yes.
I think we always do have a difficulty slider on these, but yeah, we can make them so that the villain that you're fighting is against all odds.
Yeah.
You have to try to take down this villain.
Yeah.
So you can really put the players into a position where their backs are against the wall, or they're at a supreme advantage and they're plotting their victory. And so it's lets you experience different perspectives and the MCP universe.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that idea of you don't want the biggest bads, the ultimate villains of the Marvel Universe, or Peter Parker, depending on your point of view, may also be an ultimate villain, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to feel like overcoming them is easy. It's not part of the narrative. So we often look at, like, if the crisis teams can only win 30-40% of the time, that's actually what you want out of those. So it is inherently in that kind of like unbalanced state, but with a purpose, right? To hit the overall view and the needs of it.
There's often, a MacGuffin to go fetch, and that to weaken the fields around the big character that is ruining people's days.
Absolutely.
A lot of people. Usually.
So many people. Spider-Man is just trying to take some pictures, though, so I don't really know.
He just wanted to go to Comic-Con.
Asterisk Spider-Man just wanted to go to a Comic-Con and enjoy himself, and then totally got just
bamboozled.
Or Hulk, the Hulk Ultimate Encounter again, another hero just trying to clean up a mess that somebody else made.
Or maybe he's on the loose. I'm not.
Maybe he's on the loose. It's hard to say.
You pick.
It's hard to say.
You pick.
Yeah, so we've obviously done a number of different Ultimate Encounters throughout the course of the game. We've mentioned some of them from the start, but we also did AI ones. The Ultron one has an AI mode that I know you worked really heavily on, so that players can just fight the game and have like a fully cooperative experience.
Yeah, that was done
during player mode, right?
Yeah, that was done during the initial onset of the COVID lockdown, so that players could play at home either with their family or alone. Right.
Yeah.
And we also have the Juggernaut one.
Yep, the Unstoppable
Colossus. Not Juggernaut.
Which that one, I like that one a lot, just for the zaniness of like how he runs across the table and breaks things, and you have to like slow him down and stop him.
Yeah, that one's more like a puzzle game to me, where it's like, can I figure out how to do this before he ruins everything?
And that's another really neat thing about working on Ultimate Encounters, but it goes back to what we're talking about, is that each Ultimate Encounter, we also have the opportunity to make a very different experience.
Absolutely.
So there will be ones that maybe really appeal to players. Maybe I want to figure out a puzzle with my friends for an Unstoppable Colossus. Maybe I want to go up against Thanos with all the gems and really go through, like, I would say one of the more complex Ultimate Encounters alongside like Dormammu, where we have to go collect spell effects, and there's a lot more random luck in terms of turning off the portals and that kind of stuff. So a very cool thing, and one that transfers into our next topic of conversation, which is just the overall event narrative plays. So the game kits like Vibranium Heist or Infinity War, where each one of these offers kind of a one-shot or a one-off opportunity to do something that's very different from the base game that still uses it as its core. So talk a little bit about either your favorites of those, or kind of what you find intriguing about what they bring to the game and the experience.
Yeah, so we have I think Renewal Vows is my favorite. I think the moving from one mission into the next and having the results matter, that is my favorite part of that.
Sort of the linked campaign style thing with unique scenarios inside of each one.
Yes.
Nice. I feel like I would be mistaken if I didn't mention Separation Anxiety, because that was one of the most fun ones that we had making, and it's a huge community hit. Everybody seems to love that one a lot. The events always sell out at conventions and stuff.
Even with my friends that don't play MCP much, I can pull out Separation Anxiety, and it's kind of balanced by having 4 players on the table, and everybody can just have a good time.
It's just fun, right? Like, it's very silly. It's certainly not balanced, but you never feel like you're getting blown out or anything, because it's just an enjoyable, wacky good time of crazy effects happening all over the place, right? And I think that one is one of the best kits we've ever done. And there's a soft spot in my heart for Vibranium Heist because it was
the first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, you get to crack codes. I mean, for me, we talk about this a lot internally too. There's something about when you can integrate the materials for the game in a way that it also affects the gameplay that just feels super satisfying. So like when you're rolling dice to crack codes,
and like you actually put them on
you
the
actually
little
put them on the
dashboard
thing to like
put 'em
cover
in
up the dashboard and things like that.
very tactile.
Yeah, they draw you into the experience, and I think part of playing miniatures games is we all like tactile stuff, tabletop in general. So pushing that in, it makes you feel like you're more part of the story. It makes you feel like everything that's happening on the table is more alive.
Absolutely. And you get to really put yourself into a very different place that is very different from the Ultimate Encounters, which are linked to having a big threat at all times. This lets us do things that just like people are having a good time with, like the what's coming up. But
yeah. Well, and there's also opportunities to kind of combine the two ideas, right? Vibranium Heist has this unique Killmonger that's very suited to the goals of the game. So you get to show this character in this unique way because it's the story about him, right? He's breaking into Wakanda to steal vibranium. So now we get to create unique rules for him that make him good in this mode, but that don't really make sense anywhere else or outside of it. Or you can do things like the Domain of the Dread Dormammu, which we did, where you have this entity card that can be laid on top of anybody, changing the story and changing the feeling of the game, but having that unique thread that ties it all together to the experience. And coming up with those things and being able to just, again, explore different ideas, look at different things. And sometimes those ideas translate back into conversations that wind up in the main game in changed forms that are more balanced. But I think being able to step away from the, I don't want to say humdrum activity of creating the base game, but the standard pace of creating the base game, and having that safe space to be like, well, what if it was like this? What if we did that? It becomes very interesting and I think improves the overall quality of what the design and development is able to come up with when it comes to just expanding the standard game mode.
Yeah, and you can get crazy in these, right?
You can.
You can do totally wacky stuff because you don't have to worry
change the
about
tone
it, right?
to be more serious even, or
you can go either
more
direction,
goofy.
right? So I think that's another great thing for these.
So let's talk about Mojo Ball, because if anything kind of encapsulates all the things we've talked about, crazy, zany, a wildly different experience that's highly thematic.
Mojo Ball.
Mojo Ball.
What if you played football, kind of, while you played Crisis Protocol?
A demented Mojo version of what he thinks football is.
Sure.
Well, it's always multi-ball.
Multi-ball.
It's always multi-ball in Mojo Ball.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Well,
So
if one
there's-
football's good, 3 footballs must be better.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. That's true.
Just higher ratings. You got to boost those ratings.
So I think one of the things that's really changes the tone in Mojo Ball is characters don't get picked up off of the battlefield. Like they just go to jail, come back,
They go in the penalty box.
right?
But it's kind of weird because it's not if they do a penalty; it's
Right.
if somebody
Beats
beats
them
them
up.
up. They're like,
Yeah.
ah.
Yeah, I mean,
And then they
you
hop
did
up.
something wrong by getting beaten up.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Fair.
yeah,
Fair.
that's how it
Fair
works.
enough. Fair enough.
The camera doesn't want to watch you slumped there on the field. That's not exciting. The action must move.
So the core concept of Mojo Ball is there are 3 footballs, or Mojo Balls perhaps, and you have to collect them and then bring them to a goal. Very similar to many sports out there, but there's a lot of rules for passing the balls, intercepting, and then all sorts of things like that are very common in football. And then there's also an entire set of playbook cards, which essentially replace tactic cards in the game that are all very specifically linked to things you want to be doing inside the game, stripping the ball, tripping people, doing all that kind of good stuff. And as you play them, you draw new ones and you cycle through the stack, right?
Also,
And-
instead of your leadership, you get a team ability that themes you towards that. And I think what I like about Mojo Ball is that there's just always kind of 3 plays going on at any time because of 3 balls. And then you can score on one, use your playbook card, draw more playbook cards, and the ball comes back to the middle, and the action just keeps happening.
Do it
3
again.
plays all the time, you know.
So it's zany, it's wacky, it's really fun, and it is very different from any other type of Crisis Protocol, right? Because I mean, you don't have Crisis, you're not scoring, or you are scoring points, but not in like the same way that we've ever seen it before. And the characters behave very differently because the scenario of what they're trying to accomplish is completely different.
Yeah, it's interesting how, rightfully so, the fact that you have to get the abstract objectives to the goals,
Yes.
or stop your opponent from getting their abstract objectives to the goals. A lot of Crisis Protocol is managing the secure versus the extract.
Yes.
But here it's just managing the extracts with the added value of like you can't just run away from the action. You have to run towards a specific goal.
Yeah, I like to think that the characters are slam dunking.
Slam dunking, like
the ball, yeah, into the goal.
Lights
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's kind of like what I picture whenever I'm playing.
I always see Powerball from American Gladiators. Whenever
Okay,
we
yeah,
put this on the
Powerball.
table, like
Yeah.
I can hear the music. It's like a twisted Mojo version of it, and they're just like running around trying to get these balls into the goals and getting slammed like back and forth. Mojo he's got his ringer team, and then he's transported a bunch of the Earth heroes into be like the opponents, right?
Oh, that's
like,
cool.
yeah, you
That's
gotta
cool
like
concept.
Mojo is one of my favorite bizarre characters, just for how he's super evil, but like he's just a TV producer, Just, like make it work, right? But very cool. One of the really unique things about Mojo Ball is that it's going to be our first of these game modes that gets sold as a regular product. So players are just going to be able to get it if they want to. It has all the content you need to be able to play with someone else.
Yes.
So yeah, it's not going to be like behind the organized play or anything like that. There will be a retailer support kit that will be available for retailers who want to support the game in their stores. It will come with some like cool bonus promo materials and things. But the core game itself, all of the materials you need to play, you'll be able to just pick up like a normal Crisis Protocol product. And that's come as an evolution as we've kind of looked at the pipeline and kind of gauged interest on this stuff. Making sure that we're supporting our retailers is super important to us and something we will continue to do, but also making sure that players have access and opportunity to be able to get these different game modes and to kind of be able to ratchet up the amount of components and complexity of them is also really important, because obviously when you're looking at an organized play kit, you have to be very aware of like 8 players need to get this, you need to be able to run the event. That's going to put limiters on it. We want to make sure that we're pulling off some limiters on this so that we can really start exploring more and more of this stuff as we move forward. You want to talk about one-shot cards? One-shot cards.
I always want to talk about one-shot cards.
Speaking of things that are going to
Absolutely.
start showing up in products.
Yes, I always want to talk about one-shot cards. One-shot cards are sort of the newest thing that we've added internally to Crisis Protocol, which are special rules. Some are more complex, some are less complex, but special rules for terrain. This could be anything from picking up vibranium canisters and putting them in the vibranium hauler to get bonuses. This could be anything from when you throw a cement mixer at someone and it collides with them, they get slow.
I really like how easy these are to use. Just like you set up a game night with your friend and just like, do you want to use a few of these, or do you want to set up a few of these? You want to put these pieces of terrain, just collaboratively setting up the game together, and you decide whether you want to use the one shots to make it exciting, or you can play the standard game if you're feeling like that way, or if you're it's very easy to just on the fly customize the game to how you want to play.
And there's a lot of them coming. They will, of course,
I
be
can't
in
stop
all...
you from writing more.
Nope.
You just keep doing it.
And marketing just keeps cheering me on.
They're not my allies in this.
No, the one-shot cards are
Can we
incredible.
get 12?
I like writing
and then
them
it's
as
like,
well.
I have 24. I'm like, well, we needed 12.
And I'm like, well,
And
now
then
there's
I'm
30.
like, okay, well, let's stop at 24. And you're like, but now I have 30. I'm like, okay, but 24 seemed like enough. Well, now it's 48. And I'm just like, please stop. It's been 10 minutes.
I'm not sure what all made it in, so I don't actually want to say
Sure.
we have
there's a lot of them coming, and as we talked about in
We showed the Wakanda ones.
Yeah, we showed the 2 Wakanda ones. We talked about them being in the Asgard packs as well.
Yep.
No spoilers there. And then we also talked about going back and doing tons for all of the old terrain. All of the old terrain might be an exaggeration. A lot of the old terrain is getting
At least
cards.
one or two based on the kind of the thematic sets, right? So New York terrain, cosmic terrain, those kinds of
Hydra.
things, Hydra. The thing that I love about the one-shot cards, and the reason that I was so excited to explore them, is that the different environments of the Marvel Universe have an impact. Like, they are characters in themselves. Being able to add extra rules that kind of represent those environments better to make it feel like, okay, we're going to play in Wakanda. I got all the Wakanda terrain. I'm ready to set up my cool board. Having the Panther statues have an effect, or having the vibranium hauler be more than just set dressing for me, from a narrative perspective, is super fun. Like it throws me more into the game and does exactly what I'm looking for out of my standard play experience.
I expect people will be using these on like every game night. The people that really like them,
So they're very, very cool. And I know not only do you like to write a bunch of one-shots, you also have come up with some pretty crazy events that will utilize these in fun ways that will be seen in the future as these start to come out and everything else. So a very, very cool move forward. One of those things that's like, we've talked a lot about the big standard play deviations, and then you have this little branch.
Yeah, it's a little offshoot.
Like just little offshoot that's got a beautiful flower on it. You're like, look at that.
It really just sets the scene where you have the panther statues keeping watch is really cool. I mean, whenever someone is dazed, they teleport near them, something like that.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
Yes, the panther statues.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about, at this point, through the game's development, we really started with the narrative and the more like story-driven stuff first. And one of the things that has kind of been relatively, I don't want to say on the back burner, but that was at the end of the journey or further into the journey of Marvel Crisis Protocol, because we wanted the game to grow and develop and to mature in a lot of different ways, was, the competitive side of things is also an important slice of the pie, right? Yeah. It is one of those things that there are players out there who want to challenge their skills, who want to prove, that they have the tactical acumen, the strategic acumen, to be able to come to a table and achieve victory. And this is like part and parcel. Every game that's played, there's a winner, there's a loser, right? The core mantra that we've always had, though, is that the point of the game is to win. The goal of the game is to have fun.
Of course.
And so we've kind of like, right?
I think you switched it.
Did I switch it up? The goal of the game is to win. The point of the look, it's been 3 days.
The goal is to win. The point is to have fun.
There you go. Whatever, whichever way works. You say it the way that feels the most for you.
I did.
But I know.
Thank you.
You nailed it. But everybody kind of defines fun in different ways, and so one of the things that we moved towards and we talked about a little bit before Gen Con, and we're going to dive into here now with Mr. Ben Ransom, giving us all the info.
I'm really excited about
every last drop.
Every detail. Okay.
I don't want to see a single juicy drip fall to the ground.
I think
we're going to talk about timeline events. What?
Thanks for the setup, Jake.
That's what I do.
He just does this, but the ball goes that way.
So timeline events, I think, are a really cool challenge that we're offering players. It is a minimum of 32 players. It's a premier event. So you've got to get like a convention of people together.
Yeah, this very specifically, the timeline events are premier convention events, right? These are not designed or meant for your in-store play. We already have challenger events for those that, they handle all of the basic, like, we just want to get 8 people, 16 people together, have a tournament.
We've got challenger, we've got crisis events, both for that, right? Depending on if you want to go a little more casual or you want to go a little more competitive in your tournament structure.
So there's all of that. Plus we have different formats that work at the level. We have the draft and ban one that you can easily run at a store if you want to throw some different stuff on it. These were to address what is the big thing, like the marquee competitive event at a significant convention that has a large number of seats and is looking to take a big group of people and prove that mastery.
So if you have just 32, what you're going to do is you're going to play 3 unique rosters, unique tactics cards, unique characters, unique crises.
And this is from a curated timeline.
Right.
Right. So this is not the full set of characters in the game. This is not the full set of tactic cards in the game. This, I think the first one is the full set of crisis cards, but it doesn't have to be.
It is the full set of crisis cards, yes.
But it doesn't have to be necessarily in the future. So it is a curated, smaller subset of the game that you then build 3 rosters out of.
Yep. And what you're going to do is you're going to play 3 rounds, one with each roster, based off of first round, first roster, second roster, third round, third roster. And at that point, there's going to be a cut to the top 8, and then there's going to be an elimination bracket at the end, where you have players that are seeded based off of how they did strength of schedule wise in the first 3 rounds, and then they play roster 3, then roster 2, then roster 1 to the finals.
Yes.
Yep. So that's it. You have to. I think the weight is a little bit on roster one, but you have to be able to play so much of the format as we define it, and it really forces you to work with the tools that you have and come up with creative solutions to each metagame problem. You have to come up with 3 answers to.
Yeah,
right.
'cause you need
Whenever
one in each of
there
your
is,
rosters,
because
right?
you don't know what you're going to pair into. You're not choosing your roster to play against the opponent's roster. So every single one of your rosters has to answer all of the metagame threats.
Or you can just hedge your bets and be like, I'm going to dodge.
Yeah, or you can dodge, right? Yeah. So this is a
gonna be
very
fine, I'm gonna
metagameable format. Like this, what it's about is giving players a challenge where they can take all their tools and evaluate them, and come up with whatever solution they need. 3 solutions for everything they think might be an issue, right? And having to play all of the crises really makes you play several different strategies. You have to play rosters with different strategies every time you sit down at the table. So it's really challenging the breadth of players' ability and their expertise with the whole game. And I'm really excited about it. I think that each section of the each timeline
Yes.
will feature all the characters that are in it very, very strongly. Like, you have to consider basically every character that's in it because there's only so many things to work with. And it makes it so things will come out about characters competitively that we wouldn't have seen before. And you could take that freshness, that sort of technology that you find because you have to, and bring it into the standard game.
I think that'll be really exciting to see.
I think it just makes the whole game much more exciting and much more innovative, and will bring a lot more freshness to the metagame, both in and out of timeline events.
And I mean, it does. I think it does 2 really important things, right? It is a format that really rewards or is for players who like to creatively innovate, to think, to be challenged with a limited set of options, right? If you enjoy the list building experience and saying, okay, I only have these things, how am I going to handle that? It plays right into that. And then it really hits home for the idea of, I want to prove that I have this level of mastery over the game, that I can take maybe a suboptimal matchup because of how the event structure runs, and through clever play and understanding of what my list does, what my opponent's list does. Because again, you're not looking at the full breadth of the game, you're looking at whatever the timeline selection is. And that timeline selection is not small, right?
No, it's not. We're looking at about 80 characters, right around.
So it definitely is still a significant portion. And when you consider 80 characters, you need 30 for your 3 rosters, you have a pretty big pool to draw from as you want to do stuff.
And then when things are released, they go into the format. So you're going to be, even over the course of the format, going to have to change your strategies.
Yeah, you'll see new things come in and things swap out as if you go to different events.
Another thing this does as a premier format is it can get really big. You can have a really, really epic tournament, and once you get, I think the format of play 6 rounds, then cut to top 8, which is
So
if we have up
people
to
was 3 rounds, right?
Yep. And if we have up to 512 people, I did the math. If we have up to 512 people, you play 6 rounds, then cut the top 8, then play another 3. So that's the 3-day format. If we get a ton of people playing the game, we can support all of them, and then you're challenged to play each roster twice before the cuts, then enter a seeded elimination bracket, which is super hype. You can get to see the matchups. People that have gone undefeated are not going to, seeded means they're not going to play each other until the end if they make it all the way through. So you can do what you do with elimination brackets is they're so.
Well, you can get like the fantasy football things going on, right? And that was something that I always loved when I was playing in competitive events back in the day, was when you had brackets that were posted beforehand, you get that, like, who do you think is going to win, and you can do all the fantasy football drafting and all that kind of stuff, and like, I guess it's not fantasy football. What am I thinking of?
March Madness.
March Madness stuff.
March Madness, exactly that.
I don't do that, but yeah.
You
so you can play all that kind of
probably
stuff.
Win. Usually the person who knows the least about college football wins the March Madness events.
So yeah,
I'll see
at
y'all in
our
March.
events, we're expecting to play them the 6 rounds, cut to top 8, 3 rounds. If
Yes.
we are
For a total of a 9-round event over 3
a total
days.
of 9-round event over 3 days. Yes.
And I think from a standpoint of the limited format also, it's a way to continue to keep this format fresh and interesting and challenging as we rotate things out. We can do things that continue to make this event one that hits the notes that we want.
Yeah.
It's never really going to become stale because you're always going to have different tools, you're going to have different things to think, and as the crises that are available to the game expand and grow, then you're going to start to see, like Pagani said, you don't have to use all of the standard crises. You might have a selection of them. What happens if you remove Researcher, right?
Yep.
Like what happens if Spider Portals goes away?
What
does
happens
that
if
mean?
you remove Malekith, or you remove Hulk from the metagame,
Or Captain America.
or you remove Captain America or
For
Spider-Man, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does a criminal syndicate, like what does a solid criminal syndicate affiliation look like if they only have access to, say, pick a random crazy one? Quick, go.
Craven
go.
the Hunter.
Oh, he doesn't even have a
Only Kraven the
leadership.
No, you only have Craven the Hunter.
Oh, I don't
No,
know
no,
if you can make that.
I wouldn't play
It would
that.
be Shadowland Daredevil.
Sure,
Let's
if
say
you only have Shadowland and Daredevil, right?
Yeah.
And
As
you
a
don't have
leadership.
the other leaderships. Maybe you only have Claw. Is that, what are you doing with that? Like, I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff. And it's important to point out that, this doesn't replace, again, this is just another piece to the overall pie of what is Crisis Protocol play. It doesn't replace a standard Challenger or Crisis Day tournament that will be run at these conventions. It doesn't replace the team tournament formats. It doesn't replace the zanier formats. The narrative campaign things, all of the ideas that we have,
Absolutely.
right? An Ultimate Encounter tournament. I'm still waiting for that, by the way.
So-
I can't wait.
So
to
we were
see
working
people
really
do
hard
that.
to make an interesting metagame for our timeline events, and hopefully people will be able to bite their teeth into it and come up with something cool.
I'm super excited because I'm like one of those tinkerers and lists.
Yeah.
So like
It's
this is
exactly
my
for
jam.
brewers, tinkerers.
So,
It's exactly supports that sort of play. And more than mastering a single list, it's about coming up with new solutions to problems.
And I think it's an inspirational thing as well, right? Like for players who come in, because every player enters the game and they have different desires and interests, right? Some players come in and they're like, I want to play Ultimate Encounters and narrative events, and I want to build my cool tables with one shots, and that's the joy of the bulk of the game for me. Some players come in and they're like, well, I really like the idea of challenging my skills and building my in-game tactics and abilities. So I go to my store's weekly events.
Yep.
And then I start to get really good at that, and I start looking, okay, well, what's next? Where can I expand my skills? And now I see timeline events, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a mountain to climb. Can I do it? Do I want to go that far, right? And so it's health of the game. It's being able to offer all these different paths and not have any one of them overtake anything outside of the fact that the standard play game, right? The way that we come to the table from the core rule book is always the center. It's the heart of the tree, and everything else just branches out from there. So I'm super excited to see which players decide to dive into this, how they approach it, what it means for the overall discussion around the game.
Absolutely.
And to see some of the innovations and stuff. And like you said, maybe some of that innovation leaks into the base game or in other places, or at least makes people reevaluate what is possible. Or maybe it doesn't, and Timeline Event just becomes its own discussion and its own
I
sphere.
think the format, just as opposed to the standard gameplay tournament, I think what it does well is it highlights a different set of skills. I mean, it highlights that skill of figuring out a metagame and manipulating a metagame and creating around a smaller metagame.
To me, it's an exploration, right? And the timelines will change as time goes on. I'm not actually sure if we've said that yet. This timeline is expected to last a year-ish. And then every year, there's a new timeline with a new set of characters, a new set of cards, a new everything for people to explore again, right? So we got plans.
We've got so many plans.
So many plans.
There's one special, so we've kind of covered a lot of the different slices of the Crisis Protocol pie when it comes to game experiences, right? Ultimate Encounters, narrative events, one-shot cards, Mojo Ball, timeline events. We've mentioned Challenger events and Crisis events. As far as all of these different things, there's one special mention that I want to make, which is I think just as important to the overall health of the game, which is Path of the Worthy. So, well, it does not involve the gameplay aspects of it. The fact of the matter is that what brings, I think, everyone to these games is not just the gameplay, but also the hobby element. The fact that you get to assemble and create your own little Marvel team and roster, and then you get to watch that collection grow, and you get to build your skills in painting. You get to become like the artist that you want to be, and they become your own collection, your own miniatures, your own characters, your own piece of the Marvel universe. Path of the Worthy, much like we talked about with timeline events or challenger events or anything like that, is a way in which you can engage more with it. It's a way in which you can say, I really am digging this hobby side of it. I want to dive in and challenge my skills. I want to see where I can get better. And Path of the Worthy is an opportunity for players and hobbyists to come in, submit their work, and get critical feedback from some of the best in the industry, and then expand on that and build on that and be driven. It's the aspiration to become better if that's a path you choose to walk. So I love how we're able to bring in all aspects of the game, including Path of the Worthy, and kind of tie it all together. And we're not done. I think there's a lot of different areas we still want to explore, a lot of ideas going on, and I can't wait to see what's next, because there's always some crazy stuff in store in that playtest room. Sometimes when lunch doesn't show up on time, you wind up making something that might affect the future. Who knows? Hunger does a strange things to developers. We're very lunch focused.
I mean, I think that's how the Hydra Ultimate Encounter with the tank started.
But I think it started as I think somebody made an offhanded comment about, do we get to use that in the game? And I was like, absolutely not. You can't have vehicles. And then all of a sudden it was like, but here's how it would work.
Okay, but we could.
Yeah, but we could
do
and
that.
then Hydra tank.
And here we are.
So I don't make claims anymore. Somebody's like, what if we did this? And I'm like, you know what? Sure, it's fine. We'll figure it out. So before we leave you, wanted to make a very special announcement. For those who are still unaware, which I don't know how you could be, but maybe you're not, we have a brand new website. Our marketing team kicked ass, took names, and chewed all the bubblegum to get this thing done and up, and it was a labor of love and also
beautiful.
Extraordinarily Herculean in effort and pain, a little Sisyphean at times. There was a lot of boulders rolling back down hills on them. So kudos to all of them, but the reason I bring it up is because if you go there right now, you can download several of the game modes we just talked about that were only originally available as organized play kits. So if you missed out on your opportunity to get the Domain of the Dread Dormammu, Mutant Masterworks, the Magneto Ultimate Encounter, the Unstoppable Colossus, the AI-controlled Ultimate Encounter,
Totally wild.
and Separation Anxiety. Those are all available now for free for you to download as print and play options on the website so that you can dive in, start playing all these different game modes, have a blast, and explore all of what Marvel Crisis Protocol has to offer to you. Any final thoughts before we go?
No one-shot cards yet. I guess they got 2. They don't have a hauler, though.
It's true.
Soon.
TM.
Just have fun. Play the game you want to play.
Pagani?
No, I think Ben nailed it, really. That's the good one.
All right, well, with that, thank you so much for joining us. We have just a couple more panels to go before we call a close to Mini Stravaganza 2023. Please stick with us. We're going to be painting a Hondo Onaka from Star Wars Shatterpoint next. And then we're going to have our Jamboree to close everything out before we head out, have some dinner, and call it good on Mini Stravaganza. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you had a great time. Till next time, we'll see ya.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.